Okay, we welcome back onto the show, friend of the show. We haven't had you on for a while. Welcome back, Bo Sargent.
Thanks, James. Great to be here.
Yeah, now, Bo, you are a year 11 student, which is a very cool time of your life. So Pete and I...
I can't remember. But
we've been reminiscing fondly of our high school days previous, but we have some stories because there's been a bunch of stories in the news last couple of weeks about high schools.
There have.
And Pete and I are looking at that going we should get a high school student on, talk through some of these stories, get an idea of what's going on from ground level. So... All right, so let's start off with one that I saw recently. So Melbourne Girls College, we talked about this on the show last week. Melbourne Girls College are removing their rubbish bins. They're saying no more rubbish bins in the entire school. If you have any rubbish with you, you're going to have to carry it home. Now that's not going to work. Now I think there's just going to be rubbish anywhere because pockets are small. So what was your take on that?
Exactly. Well, this is a completely ridiculous idea. It's so impractical. I know how these things work. It's probably 4 or 5 students who are all in on the climate change. They're at all the school strikes for climate and all that. And they've gone to their people high up in the school and said, you know what, we need to do something. We need to ban bins at school because that's going to save the world somehow. So you're not going to stop plastic use at school by banning bins. Students are still going to be using plastic. And I presume if they're taking their plastic away from school, then they're going to go and put it in their bins at home.
Yeah.
So that's not going to change the use of plastic.
Their plastic will find a bin. Maybe not at school, but they will find a bin.
Exactly. So, and banning bins, probably more likely is that if someone's got a wrapper for something and they don't have 3 pockets or whatever, and if it's a bit dirty or whatever,
and no one's looking.
They just, behind a tree or whatever.
Let's go back to these 4 or 5 students you're referring to earlier. Are they students like that at your school?
I don't think to the same extent, but yeah.
And my other thing is, I remember when I was at school, one of the punishments you could get was to pick up papers. So how's that going to work if there's no rubbish bins?
Well, yeah, they're going to
still litter.
Yeah.
Well, the modern education system, we don't do punishment.
Really?
We do sort of rehabilitative justice.
I heard of one which was
That's how it works.
relearning. You just got to relearn something. As if you were taught it the wrong way. There's nothing in you that wanted to do anything wrong. It was just you were taught wrong and you're just acting out. So we need to relearn you.
Sounds right.
Yeah.
So are you saying there's no picking up papers at your school as a punishment?
No.
Really?
No, yeah.
Well,
I don't think
Bo's ever been in trouble in his life.
Yeah, maybe Bo's never.
Maybe there are, but just Bo wouldn't be privy to those conversations. All right,
That's
there's another story I found. So every state school in Victoria, the Premier, I guess the Victorian government here, so every state school is banning mobile phones in class next year. So the idea is you put your phone in your locker room at the start. You put your phone in the locker at the start. It's there for how many hours school goes for, and then at the end of the day, you can get your phone back. Yep. Now, I just think with students today, no one's following that rule. You will find a way to bring your phone into class.
Absolutely.
You will find a way to add to Snapchat throughout class. Do you see what's your take?
So
Tinder.
I kind of like the idea of it at a
Tinder's
primary
18
school
plus,
level.
Pete.
At a primary school level, it's probably a good idea. They don't need their phones. Probably best not to have the same kind of reliance on it. But at high school, can guarantee no one will follow this rule. There will be phones, unless you're going to search every student as they enter a class. Probably not going to happen. So students are still going to be carrying their phones around. Students are still just going to be using their phones under the desk in a less obvious manner. It's not going to change anything.
Well, you say less obvious manner, but every student thinks that they get away with it all the time. But teachers have got to know there's just an absolute brain dead look of someone staring at their legs and go I wonder what that is.
If you're on your computer, the trick is you put your phone up on the computer screen and it looks like you're looking at a computer doing work.
Well, you stumbled on anotto one that I want to get to. The computer also connects to the internet the last time I checked. So if people if teachers are worried about students mucking around in class, you're going to have to get rid of literally everything and go back to this 1930s classroom of just, a pencil and a book.
Abacus.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can access all the same stuff on your computer.
Yeah.
Banning phones achieves nothing.
Yeah.
So we've had listeners tell us that they listen to the Young IPA podcast in their politics class. Will they still be able to do that, or is it going to be too difficult to get away with?
Well, I'm surprised that any schools are letting students listen to it.
Yeah, if you do the headphone through the shirt and you put it up through the cuff and then you're just doing that, you can get away with that.
You've got quite good at this, James.
You're
a bad kid?
No, I wasn't a bad kid, but just I didn't love science and maths. Bo was telling us that he's a maths genius. I think were your direct
That's what he
words.
said.
I think that were your words. But I zoned out pretty quickly, and I prefer to listen to music. So you can just do a quick sneaky, and then off you are listening to Radiohead. But then there's this other side of it to me, which is technology can't be stopped. Like, it's the way of the future. Students are, like, babies learn quicker how to play Candy Crush than they do how to write and read. So, like, education has to adapt to the fact that we all use phones, we all use computers, we all use these electronic things, and to work against that by banning it, it's like, shouldn't you be embracing it and finding ways to use that in the class?
Exactly. Like, you will leave school and probably never have your phone banned at any point again. Like, there's no... Banning phones in school isn't setting you up for later life.
Yeah.
And also the fact that once you leave the school gates, everyone's just going to get on their phones anyway.
Yeah.
Like, that already happens.
Resume cyberbullying.
So, yeah.
Or just store up on the 6 hours of memes they've missed and there's no homework being done. All right, so another one we got. So last time you were on the show, we talked about how much of a fan of Jordan Peterson you were. And Jordan Peterson's had an interesting couple of months. Like, there's been some really good things and there's been some, odd things. One thing he's come out with is this idea that he wants to ban deepfakes. Now, like, just in case anyone watching or listening doesn't know what deepfakes are. So deepfakes are like when you can CGI someone else's face onto someone making a different statement, or you can use all these audio bites of people saying other words to put together to make them look like they're saying something that they never actually said. Now, it's pretty creepy, and there's some pretty awesome YouTube videos. Like, awesome in, like, it inspires awe, but it's not, like, great. But awesome YouTube videos of this sort of deepfake stuff being done. So anyway, now that Jordan Peterson's weighed in, I know Bo Sargent's probably thought about it himself. So what was your take?
Well, it is a pretty concerning development to be able to manipulate the words people are saying in such a way that it appears like they're actually saying it. And a lot of people, like, were that to go viral or whatever, a lot of people are going to be taken in by that. I'm a high school student, so I'm not sure what the solution is. I wouldn't pretend to know whether banning is the solution.
Oh, that is a
or
cop
whatever.
out.
Call interview over. All right, we're done.
No, it's concerning. Something, and because it's hard for individuals who are viewing it to be able to distinguish. Like, it's almost impossible to do. So you can't just tell people, oh, well, you should improve your critical thinking and be more suspicious of everything.
Yeah.
Because then you might as well just say, oh, well, just log offline and never watch another video.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, I don't know how much more, like, skeptical you can be than if you see someone say something with their own voice and still go, I don't believe it. Like that is a level of skepticism that no one has ever needed to in the previous.
And I'm sure there could be a campaign in the future where a candidate says something and says, oh, sorry, that was just a deep fake.
Yeah,
No, I didn't actually say that.
Yeah. That's not me.
How common are these deep faking skills out there? Do half your mates know how to do it?
No.
Okay.
No. So I think they're pretty rare. I don't think I've actually.
Do you know
never
how to do it?
No idea.
Oh, that's what he says. Maybe that's a deep fake.
Yeah, maybe this is this whole thing might be real.
Yeah, but no, I think they're pretty. It's pretty hard to do.
Yeah.
But I guess as technology develops, like, it becomes more and more accessible to people that didn't have the previous skills.
Yeah.
And so eventually, I presume there'll be a time where you can just log on to the deepfake website, come up with a template, insert what you want someone to say, and it'll be done.
Yeah, it seemed to be the case with Jordan Peterson. Like, in that article, he's like, there's a website you can go where I'm starting to rap Eminem lyrics, which, I still haven't got around to going to, even though the second I read it, I'm like, that's the rest of my afternoon
I feel like that
gone.
should have been a priority.
That should have been number one over Hey. So the other thing I want to say, so you brought up how, like, students need to think critically about this. Like, Pete and I come and go with this idea all the time of just, like, do young people, are they skeptical of government? Are they skeptical of these things? Or do they just believe whatever authority figures like teachers tell them? Like, what do you reckon?
So people are skeptical of government, major parties,
Yeah.
but often that's not in a good way because they buy whatever the Greens say
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever the Socialist Alliance says in many cases. So it's mixed. So there is some skepticism around certain issues where people will just not accept what the Liberal Party or Labor Party might say. But the problem being, they'll just kind of blindly follow what the Greens will say in a lot of cases. But also, when I come on here, I like to bring some kind of hope.
Yeah.
And there are definitely lots of students that I know who are skeptical of the kind of standard sort of green left dogma that is promoted all the time, really incessantly. There is skepticism around that I've seen, but always could be more, but it is promising.
All right, so we've got one more thing we want to ask you about, and then you've brought something in yourself, actually, which shows initiative, which you like to see in young people, isn't it, James?
Or just on this podcast once?
Yeah. So what we talked about last week on the show was this woman in the UK called Catherine Birbalsingh, who started this fantastic free school which has, traditional learning, traditional teaching methods and traditional discipline and all this stuff. They had really great results in their GSCE last week. What's your view on all that?
GCSE being like end of school test, like VCE or something like that.
Yeah.
ATAR.
Well, it sounds really good. Sounds often I think that there is a problem with lack of discipline in classrooms. I've heard this said a lot by commentators, by people who are sort of experts on the teaching field, and they say that Australian classrooms around the world are notable for the fact that they lack a sense of discipline. They lack a sense of students being quite directed. Unlike, for example, the Chinese education system, where it is very strict and where there is a strong sense of direction. Everyone's trying to do well, they're trying to do their best. That's often not the case in our system. And so I think that bringing that into, or setting up a school that is premised on that kind of thing, like she did in the UK, sounds like a really good thing.
How do you think you deal with the silence between classes?
Because I would have been expelled in 20 minutes.
I don't think I'd do very well. I think I'd be gone in even less time. But
yeah. All right, well, it's you and me picking up papers outside and we finally figure out whether that's a punishment or not. Now, as Pete alluded to, you say you bring hope to this podcast and you've also bought a textbook. So why don't you explain what this is?
So the textbook...
Because I was not prepared for a test at the end of this. I've forgotten everything I've said. I've forgotten everything you've said.
I haven't seen a textbook for a while.
Unfortunately, the textbook does not bring hope.
Okay.
The textbook is actually pretty shocking, to be honest. So this is a Politics 1-2 textbook by the organisation Social Education Victoria.
Yeah.
I haven't looked deeply into this organisation. I just know that this is the prescribed textbook for lots of schools studying 1-2 politics.
It's Year 11 politics.
Year 11 politics. Yep. And so on this page here, at the end of the book about political actors and Australian politics, we get a section telling us how to get involved in politics. So
Okay.
part one...
Listen to the Young IPA podcast. Good start.
That's in bold and all caps. That's interesting.
So part one, join a party. Seems fair enough. Part two, write a letter to your local MP about an issue.
Two for two.
Fair enough. Part three, subscribe to GetUp. HTTPS, link, an online political action group that allows subscribers to choose which issues to get involved in and offers a variety of ways to take action.
Yeah.
You're kidding me.
It's right here.
With a
That's
URL.
unbelievable.
Yep.
So is there actually a URL?
There is a
Wikipedia?
URL
Wow.
to GetUp in a textbook.
I almost said a naughty word on the podcast. Then. That's unbelievable.
It is. So I opened this textbook at the beginning of the year and was sort of flicking through it day before school started, seeing what was coming up. And I thought, oh, must be a mistake. That can't be right. But it's there, printed. There's no balance there. There's no subscribe to the IPA.
No.
There's no alternate. It doesn't say that it's a left-wing, far left organisation.
Get up, aren't left wing, Bo. Don't be silly, mate. No, and there's another one here. Write a letter to the editor of The Age or even your local newspaper.
Or even your local
Or even,
newspapers,
yeah.
like the kind of condescending, even your local newspaper, that might be okay.
But just like the
Age is
idea of
better.
like, look, I'll let you do your local newspaper, but far be it for me to even mention that the Australian or the Herald Sun exists or the Daily Telegraph even.
Yep.
Now, is this a widespread textbook? I know you said your
believe
school
so.
has it, but so you reckon like other students in other wow.
Seems a mainstream kind of Social Education Victoria, I believe, publishes a number of textbooks
Right.
about social science subjects, and
Yeah.
this is what is in,
And
what's
in
theirs.
their list of stuff you should read if you want to know more about politics, there's ABC, Guardian Australia, Melbourne Age, The Conversation, Crikey, New Matilda, and anyway, Q&A. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That's
Anyway,
a
cool.
wide smorgasbord. That's a multi-purpose diet. All right.
Yeah, diverse
Bo,
views.
usually we look to you for hope, but I've got this overwhelming sense of dread at the end of this interview, so we'll just go with that. So, Bo, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Bo.
All right.